We need to talk about this because this is a very interesting insight into how manipulation works. Yes, it's an Epstein survivor that many people have criticized, but because she was of age when she was manipulated by Epstein. But even so, I watched this. This is really short. I watched this, and this is basically the best exposition that I've seen in some time as to how manipulation works, actual manipulation works, and how Jeffrey Epstein must have manipulated so many women. In fact, I explained the lover boy method yesterday, a couple days ago, and this sounds a lot like it. So I'm going to just play this without commentary, and we're going to do the commentary at the end. But you have to listen to this. This can help you spot actual manipulators. Let's watch this.
Just a heads up, this episode contains discussions of families weren't as diverse.
Okay, this has a bit of cuts because this has cuts from a longer interview, but the part that I want you to listen to is it's going to be in 2 seconds.
People would often ask, "Wow, what are you?" And I'd simply reply, "I guess I'm a mutt." My parents never taught me to identify with one specific race. I'm actually thankful for that. I felt more connected to the European way of life and thinking than to the American one, probably because I spent my teen years in Europe. I always felt different. Patience for shoots, attending the best parties, and living a fulfilling, joyous life. So one day, my agent called with exciting news. I had booked a magazine cover and a 6-page story alongside another model from my agency. I was over the moon, to say the least. So the crew and the other model, she was an incredibly beautiful blonde Polish girl, and I flew to Tortola in the British West Indies for the shoot. We had an amazing time, but the photographer, he made me uncomfortable with his unwanted advances. It was, unfortunately, a common issue in the modeling business at the time. And desperate to escape the photographer's attention, I eagerly agreed and accepted when the other model invited me to spend our free time, a free day, on a friend of hers' private island. She assured me her friend Jeffrey was trustworthy and he was super wonderful to her. So we boarded the boat he sent. I don't even know why the clients let us go. And we sailed across the crystal blue clear waters. To my surprise, we had actually arrived at Little St. Jeff's. My time on the island was a mix of relaxation and a little unease. We hung out by the pool with 2 other young blonde girls who I thought was my age or around my age. One of them was particularly affectionate with an older gentleman in the pool. I remember that. And as evening fell, we went to our quarters to prepare for dinner. Still feeling great from the day so far. So dinner time arrives, and I'm seated at this long table with 3 other girls from the day. We're feasting on fresh seafood and talking and laughing and truly enjoying getting to know each other. It was a really fun time. Not long after that, a handsome man with a charming smile walks up.
This is the part. This is
he
the important
introduces
part.
himself as Jeffrey, shakes my hand and kisses my cheek and sits down right next to me. For hours, Jeffrey focuses attention on all of us, but it was mostly on me. He was incredibly charming and he had a sharp, witty humor that only really intelligent people kind of possess. And we talked extensively about traveling, something I loved, and had traveled a lot. And I had already visited by that time a lot of countries, so we kind of had a lot to talk about that and art. I had recently returned from a trip in South Africa, and he found that really interesting. Jeffrey asked a lot of questions that night, the kind that no man usually bothers to ask you. Stuff about my childhood, how I grew up, where I lived, intimate questions. But I still felt really safe. by his questions. It wasn't anything that made me feel on guard or... So I had lived in England growing up. Well, actually, when I mentioned living in Oxford, he had shared some stories of his time visiting there. He casually asked me if I wanted to meet a prince. And I said, sure. And right then, a dark-haired man, the guy I recognized from the pool, walked up and he shook my hand. He stayed only briefly before leaving. What stands out most from my dinner was my deep conversation with Jeffrey. He gave me life-changing advice, making me feel safe, heard, seen, and most importantly, I felt understood. He told me that I was a remarkable person and that he felt like I was powerful and I had a lot to achieve in this world. It was something I had never heard from a man before.
Okay, this is the thing. Some of you in the comments are saying that this is acted, that this is like a rehearsal, that she is reading from a teleprompter. I think that she has told this story many times. And the thing that maybe you are noticing that is strange, that she is putting Jeffrey Epstein in a good light. And she is basically explaining how she felt in that first encounter with Jeffrey Epstein. And that first encounter with Jeffrey Epstein, I have zero doubts that it went exactly like this. Some of you are saying that this is scripted, but the issue is, if there was scripted, there were, even if you think that she's passing off as a victim, she's pretending to be a victim, then the script would be about how she was victimized, such and such. And she's not saying that. In fact, she is saying the exact opposite, that she found Jeffrey Epstein the first time, at least the first time, really charming, with a very engaging conversation, asking questions, genuinely interested in her, giving her advice, nothing more. And again, you might say, I understand, maybe you have seen this lady in way more interviews that I have. Maybe you have seen other interviews. You don't trust her. That is fair. I won't judge you for that, of course. Maybe you wouldn't find Jeffrey Epstein charming, but that is because of what we know of the guy. Maybe he was actually charming when he was hanging out with people, because I can't imagine so many men and women falling for the guy. So it's something that we need to be clear about. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein must have had at least a couple ounces of charisma and magnetism and persuasion, and know how to make people feel at ease, even if they were in this island, even if they were kind of isolated. She had this feeling of uneasiness, but the contradiction, something like a kind of a contradiction, when Jeffrey Epstein pops up, she felt a bit more comfortable. And you might be asking, how is that possible? And I would tell you, if you have been following my channel for some time, when we talk about manipulators and we talk about toxic personalities, that is the danger. That is precisely the danger. And that was my surprise. I was expecting the sub story, that how I was a victim, and I guess that she's got that story as well. But my surprise was that she was extremely candid about how she felt, that she didn't have this strange vibes about this guy. No, on the contrary, it's like this was this unique man that treated her like few men had treated her in the past. Now, does it mean that if a man is interested in you and is charming and asks this question, he's a PDF file? No, not exactly. What it means is that you need to be aware that these are the tools that both a very charming man that could be righteous, yes, but a man like Jeffrey Epstein can use to make you feel at ease. because that kind of manipulation always starts with this kind of approach. I think that this description was on point. A simple conversation, nothing out of the ordinary except for questions, genuine interest in the person, although I wouldn't call what Jeffrey Epstein did genuine interest. It was a calculated interest, and these people are like mentalists. That's why I always tell you that my favorite show in terms of body language and psychology is The Mentalist. It is not Lie to Me, even if I like Lie to Me. It is not Dr. House, even if I love Dr. House, the show. But it's The Mentalist. It's how you read people and how you know what questions to ask, how to drive the conversation, how to have this magnetism, that charisma, and ultimately just, if there are any defenses, just disarm them. And this is, especially women have to be aware of this, because this is the kind of manipulation that works on women. The manipulation from manipulative women to men is a bit different. But since my audience, the majority of my audience are women, and we are talking about female victims in this case, then we need to address that this is an actual form of the first stage of manipulation. Again, I am not saying that every single man, because this is, at the same time, this is something that I would do. What she is narrating, the story that she had just told, I, Jesus Enrique Rosas, would act the exact same way. Why? Because, well, I like people to feel great when they are around. I know that that's a way to have influence, to have magnetism, to have charisma, something that I have developed over decades, is to be genuinely interested in the people. And by the way, that's something that I like to be genuinely interested and ask questions. So they tell me, they tell me about their life. And so the next time I meet them, or maybe through WhatsApp a few weeks down the line, I ask them, hey, how did this go? How are you doing about this that you told me and whatever? And they feel heard. Something that is actually necessary nowadays. And in fact, it's something that you should be doing with people that you meet. Okay, I'm going to try to make them comfortable. I'm trying to make them feel heard. That is one of the greatest compliments that you can give anyone. And right now, we're seeing that, yeah, that is one of the ingredients of manipulations. But that is the thing that it's so important to understand the distinction between the two. Again, this would be to a T my behavior. Doesn't mean that I'm a manipulator. Doesn't mean I am, a Jeffrey Epstein clone or none of the sort. But this is the kind of approach that these toxic personalities use to lure the victims. Every single time, you make sure to lower their defenses in this charming way. So again, you might say that, oh, this is scripted. Let's say, we were talking about ideas, and if I explore the opposite of an idea, my idea could be that this was not scripted, and your idea could be the opposite, that this is a script. So I'm going to explore the possibility that, yeah, this could be scripted. But even so, if this was a script, if this was a screenplay or something like that, she was reading from a teleprompter, somebody wrote that for her, it would still be true that this is the way that toxic personalities make sure to lower your defenses. So, yeah, even if it could be scripted or not, it's not the point. The point is that this example is one of the best examples that you can get about how manipulation works and how manipulation starts. And how that manipulation is going to come from people that you are not aware of and can look really magnetic, really attractive, with a lot of charisma, And again, that is the thing with men. Some of you were saying, oh, how could she say that Jeffrey Epstein was handsome or something? It doesn't work the same way. Sometimes a man is not that handsome, but he can be so charming and magnetic and act in a way that, he is a natural magnet for women. That happens. So again, I wanted to show you this, and I would love to know what do you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Body Language Guy. Much love.